Hello there, many thanks for joining us on Razep Africa this beautiful morning. As usual, it's always exciting to be here to discuss those very important issues that are making rounds across the entire continent. And this time, sometimes we also delve into how global activities and global conflicts affect Africa. Here, you are sure to have all the information you need just so that you could love Africa better, see the potentials within this beautiful continent, and see how you can contribute your best to be part of this. As usual, here on the show, we'll start with the African news update. And today we begin in Southern Africa, where South Africa has returned looted ancestral human remains and a sacred Zimbabwe bird carving to Zimbabwe, more than a century after they were taken during the colonial era. The restitution ceremony took place at the Iziko South African Museum, where 8 coffins draped in Zimbabwean national flag, were handed over to officials. Soapstone carving known as the Chapungu was removed from the ruins of Great Zimbabwe in the late 19th centuries and later sold to colonial-era figure Cecil John Rhodes. Officials say the return is part of broader push to repatriate African artifacts, with both countries describing the move as a step towards heritage and historical justice. Now, from restitution to diplomacy, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Razep Meyer as the country's next ambassador to the United States. Meyer previously played a key role in negotiations that ended white minority rule and later served in Nelson Mandela's government of national unity. The appointment comes after a prolonged diplomatic gap following the expulsion of South Africa's previous ambassador in 2025. Analysts say Pretoria hopes Meyer's experience in delicate negotiations would help rebuild strained ties between the two countries. Elsewhere, the Democratic Republic of Congo is set to receive its first group of deportees from the United States under a new agreement between both countries. Sources say more than 30 migrants, none of whom are Congolese nationals, are expected to arrive in Kinshasa this week. The move is part of Washington's broader strategy to accelerate migrant removals, but it drawn criticism from right groups and opposition figures. The development also comes as the U.S. seeks to strengthen ties with Congo, including mineral partnerships and support for efforts to end conflict in the country's east. Still in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the 9th round of peace talks between the Congolese government and M23 rebels has opened in Geneva. The negotiations aimed to halt fighting in northern and south Kivu, where clashes have displaced hundreds of thousands. Aid organizations warn that access to affected communities remain difficult, with humanitarian workers forced to negotiate with armed groups for safe passage. The talks are seen as critical to stabilize eastern Congo after repeated ceasefire attempts failed. And in Central Africa, hopes for peace are rising ahead of Pope Leo's planned visit to Cameroon's conflict-hit Anglophone region. Residents in Bamenda say the Pope's presence could help revive dialogue in a conflict that has killed thousands and displaced hundreds of thousands. Religious leaders say the crisis has increasingly become driven by kidnappings and criminality, complicating efforts towards a political solution. While violence has eased slightly in recent days, officials say that lasting peace would depend on addressing long-standing grievances in English-speaking regions. Turning now to West Africa, Nigeria has announced plans to slash import duties on a range of goods in an effort to ease the rising cost of living. Tariffs would be reduced on items including rice, sugar, palm oil, vehicles and construction materials, with exemptions for electric vehicles and mass transit buses. Officials say the move is aimed at curbing inflation and supporting businesses as global pressures push prices even higher. Authorities also cited rising fuel costs linked to the Middle East conflict as a major factor affecting household and transport expenses. And finally, the International Monetary Fund has warned of mounting economic pressures for sub-Saharan Africa amid growing global instability. The IMF downgraded global growth to 3.1% for 2026 and projected rising inflation, citing the ongoing Middle East conflict as a key risk. The fund says African economies are especially vulnerable due to reliance on imported food and energy, with higher prices expected to strain budgets and widen trade deficit. Policymakers are being urged to balance inflation control with growth while investing in energy security and structural reforms to reduce exposure to future shocks. And that's it for the African News Update this morning.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.